Hey guys, Wags with Ironman 4x4, and today we're gonna work together on getting this Raid front bumper bolted onto this Ram 1500 truck. So grab your tools and we'll get wrenching. We're here in our shop. I'm gonna put the truck on the lift just so I have a better working height. You can do this on the floor if you're in a garage. It's really your call. I mean, you do you, boo. Grab an 8mm socket and a ratchet. I got a power ratchet to go a little faster. And we're gonna take off these 3 8mm right here for this inner fender liner. And there's 2 back there that we'll loosen, and we'll slide this plastic shroud out of our way. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, with those out of the way, now we can undo this wire harness. This is gonna undo our fog lights, parking sensors. So you wanna push this red tab. This is like a safety lock. Push that back, and then this black tab here, kind of push down. Then you can rock this big gray plastic arm forward. And as you do that, push it forward all the way, pops right out like that. Most of the Ram 1500s of this vintage are gonna have this active aero front air dam on it, and that's gotta get out of the way. So let's unhook it first. Here's the plug over on the driver's side. We'll carefully remove this clip. There we go. Now we just gotta grab a little clip removal tool and we'll pop this out. This little wire retainer. There we go. Tuck that up out of the way. Then we're gonna have 4 13mm nuts. There's 2 on this side on the front and 2 on the other side. Break these loose. All right, now we can just slide that out. And don't forget, if you have factory recovery points on the front of your truck, now is a good time to unbolt those and get them out. Grab an 18mm wrench, because we gotta pull 1, 2, and 3 of these 18mm nuts on the driver and the passenger side. That's it, it's just 6 nuts that hold this whole front bumper on. You need a wrench to get to this one. The 2 outside ones, you can use an 18mm socket on an impact if you want, but this, you gotta use a wrench. Oh, and the other thing too is, when you get all 6 of these off, you can just take them off, because there's a locating pin on the frame horn, so the bumper won't fall off. All right, let's get this dirty dog out of here. Come out! What are you hooked on? It's just that easy, everyone. All right, we got the OEM bumper off the front of our Ram. Now we can actually open up our Ironman 4x4 Raid front bumper and all of its glory with all of its parts. So one thing I always do, go print out your instructions. So if you don't have them, go to ironman4x4america.com. Go to the webpage for this front Raid bar. The instructions are there. You can print them off. It's just nice to have your bill of materials with you. Get it all laid out, and then we will jump back in step by step, getting this thing put together. One thing you don't want to forget, we have 3 different sizes of M12 bolts included in the kit, and they're really close in size, so you don't want to get them mixed up. Grab yourself a tape measure, measure from the bottom of the bolt head to the end of the threaded shaft there, and you can see that you've got 40s, 45s, and 50mm long bolts. All right, now what we want to do is get these outer brackets bolted over our stock frame horns. So you're going to need 2 of these M12 40mm bolts that'll go on the 2 top locations, and 1 M12 by 50 that'll go down here. You also make sure you're using a nut and a split washer. We're gonna save those nylock nuts for the winch cradle. Now when you're looking for which bracket goes which way, there's also marked, this is stamped with an L for left, the other one's stamped with an R for right, and it's gonna fit just like this. And then what I'm gonna do is hang this upper outside one. We'll put a flat washer on the back, followed by a split washer, and then we'll spin that nut down finger tight. Flat washer, slide it through there. That'll just kind of hang on itself. We'll put a flat washer, split washer, and cap it off with a nut. All right, with those 2 there and this hanging in place, before we put this 50mm bolt through, we're gonna grab our recovery point. One thing I'll point out here is this bolt, this is a body mount bolt, so this doesn't get loosened or moved. Just leave it where it is. This cutout here is gonna go over and around it, and that will fit like that. We'll run that 50 mil bolt through. Once that's through like that, we can put flat washer on the back, split washer, and the nut. All right, so that's gonna sort of hang. We'll keep it loose. Now, if your truck came with factory recovery points, you're gonna have OEM hardware that you can reuse here in this threaded hole in the frame horn. But if you don't have recovery points on your truck, use the included M14 by 2 pitch and 50 mil long bolt, and you're gonna run that right up in here. Now, this bolt's a 22 millimeter socket, so I'm just gonna spin it down, but not tighten it all the way. There we go. So we still want some play here. So now that we've got this all set up, we're gonna jump to the other side. It's the same setup, and then we will get our winch tray hung on. Before we get the winch tray in, I thought I'd show you what the hardware layout looks like. So we're gonna grab these M12 by 45 millimeter long bolts, 2 flat washers, and a nylock nut. You're gonna have 6 of these setups. 1, 2, 3 on this side, 1, 2, 3 on that side. Then you're gonna have the last set of 4 M12 by 40 millimeter long bolts. This is gonna be bolt, flat washer, split washer, nut. 2 on this side and 2 down in there. Now the winch tray isn't super heavy, but it's a little heavy. So if you're doing it by yourself, have your hardware ready to go. I'm gonna have these guys right here, and I've got the nuts in my pocket. I'm gonna grab this winch tray. And when you're working on your own, always try to work from the center of the item, because then you can kind of support it. This is gonna go on the inside here like that. I'm gonna run this bolt through here and let that kind of pinch over on itself. Run this through here like that. I'm gonna take a nut and just spin that on, just so if it does try to slide on me, it ain't going anywhere. And then I'm gonna grab a washer and a nut. I'll spin that on like that. Cool. So now that is hanging in place. It's not gonna fall down. It won't hurt anybody except for probably me. So grab the other 4 sets of hardware with the nylock nuts. We can rock this tray back. There we go. And now we've got all the time in the world to just get it all fit together. Cool. And our last one. Cool. And we'll get these last 45s in, 2 on left, 2 on the right. So, and this is going to be flat washer, split washer, and standard nut. There we go. So you're just going to do this 3 more times, 1 here and 2 on the other side. Go. All right. Now all we got to do is get everything centered up the way we want it, tighten it down. Now, if you're installing a monster winch on your Raid front bumper on this winch tray, the included hardware with your winch is going to be a little too short because this tray is extra thick and reinforced. So we've included a 40 millimeter long bolt, which will get the job done. So make sure you're using the right length hardware when you're installing your winch onto the winch tray, because if you don't get enough thread engagement, the winch could rip out, cause a bunch of problems. So always make sure you can see 2 or 3 threads at the top over the nut. That means you've got good thread engagement. So we're going to install those square nuts here in the foot of the winch, and then we'll fit these M10 by 40 long, get those locked down. And one thing to keep in mind, the Ironman 4x4 monster winch solenoid control box, the control box itself is not 100% watertight. I don't think it's like IP69X rated. The solenoid unit inside is, but let's not get a bunch of water built up in this box. But just, you want to be really, really careful because you don't want to drill through into the components. So I'm going to go nice and slow. Perfect. And for a super clean install, when you go to mount your control box, use the included mounting plate that came with your bumper. Get the plate mounted to the box first, then we'll mount the entire assembly to the winch tray. It's way easier doing it that way. So use your included M5 hardware, grab an 8mm socket and an Allen wrench, and we'll tighten this all down. All right, now grab your 2 setups of M6x20 hardware with this flanged or phalange nut. It's gonna be a 13mm nut, 13mm bolt. The way I do it is we'll set this bracket right on top of these 2 slotted holes here on the winch tray, and then feed the bolt up from underneath, and we'll put the nut on the top side. Because it's got a flange on it, it will kind of bite down on itself. So that one is in finger tight. We'll get the other one here going. Then we can tighten it from the bolt side. You don't need to get a wrench on the top side. I got a 13mm socket, and we'll tighten them down. And if it spins on you, you can just reach your hand through, hold that nut. All right, now the super fun part of the day is getting the wire harness from our OEM front bumper out and transferred over to the Ironman 4x4 raid bar. There's easy parts and there's a couple hard parts. I'll show you. What we gotta do, we have 6 parking sensors that all have to get popped out. There's one over here, one buried underneath this whole superstructure. You've got one here. This is number 4. 5 is buried under here, 6 is out on the edge. You also have the fog lights. They're also part of the same wire harness. And then you've got some of these little plastic Christmas tree retainer clips. All right, let's start with our fog lights. This clip, just depress, so depressing, pop it out, easy, right? Same thing on the other side. Press down, wiggle it, pop it out, no big deal. Now let's talk about parking sensors. Okay, to get these parking sensors out, it's actually really, really easy. You've got these 2 tangs that kind of hold that parking sensor in place. So if you carefully press back on these plastics, you don't want to tear them, they will break if you go too crazy. But I'm gonna pull back on this and rock it forward or up. That little barb is released, and then it's the same thing on the front side, but now I'm gonna pull, kind of wiggle it back and forth. There you go, and that's out. So before we go too far, we need to get ourselves some sort of silver paint pen or a piece of tape, because we want to make a mark noting exactly the position these are in, because when we transfer this over to the raid bar, these parking sensors have to go back in exactly the same way they came out. So I'm gonna just put an up arrow. So it's pretty easy to see. These are gonna be the 2 inside. The far ones are gonna be on the outside. We can't get to these middle ones because they're buried. So I've got those marked. Let's go ahead and take them out. Again, I'm just gonna push back on that rear tab, push the top one forward and pop it out. And now I can tell that's exactly how it goes back in. I'll do the same thing here, only in reverse. I'll hit the top tab and rock it back, and you'll feel that little tooth kind of pop loose. And if you're not feeling it, don't go crazy, just easy. You definitely don't want to break them. So I'm gonna pull down on that tab, push up on the upper one. That popped out. I'm gonna grab my paint pen. I'm gonna mark an up arrow so we know that that's got a position like that. Same thing on the other side. There we go. I'm gonna plug that back into the wire harness so we don't lose it. Push that clip back in. Okay, now we got 2 more to go. Okay, the way to get these out, one hand behind, follow it in on the wire harness. Other hand, go around to the front side of the sensor and you can feel it there. Feel around for those plastic tabs, and I'm gonna pull that back tab back, and I'm pushing up on the housing because I need to get that little barb to release. Yes, I defeated you. Up like that. Awesome. We'll get the other side done and everything's unhooked. Then we can pop all these clips. Now the other trick you can do, I use it all the time, is before I pull this wire harness out, I'm gonna take a photo or a picture or a photograph, boom. So if I get confused on where stuff goes, I can go back and, figure out how it went. All right, now we just gotta unclip this dang thing. That one wants to be tricky, huh? Picking up some speed. Come on. Time. Now we will just feed this all out this way. Other super easy way to remember which way this thing goes is the main wire. This wire harness plug goes on the driver's side. So sweet, this is out. We can get the bumper out of here. We'll put this in the raid bumper. Raid bumper, awesome. It's just what I needed, ready to go. So let's feed this wire harness through. Start with your most right side. Come over here to the left plate. We're gonna feed it in front of the crumple zone. And we will feed all 3 of our right side parking sensors through there and over. Because what we're trying to do is get this in position, because you can't feed this giant wire harness plug through there. So that's about right to leave that there. Stretch this across and feed this under and back up through the front right crumple zone. Very cool. Now we can pop out these little blank plugs for the folks that don't have parking sensors. Cool. All right, we've got these parking sensor extension cables. You got 3 of them. We want to use all 3 for the left side or the driver's side parking sensors. So the way that you do that is grab yourself a pick or a screwdriver. You want to pop that little white plastic safety retention clip back, push down on it, and you can rock the connector out. We'll take this side here, connect it back in, close that safety latch on there. We'll flip around to this side, and that goes kind of upside down like. Push that in, and you're done. We're gonna do that for all 3 of the left-hand side ones. This will give us enough room so that we can slide a lot of the extra slack this way to the right and make all 3 of our right-hand side or passenger side parking sensors fit just fine. So let me show you how to put one of these parking sensor bracket holders together. You're gonna need this. You're gonna need one of these rubber plugs right here. So we'll break that loose. We're gonna put that rubber bumper on the back. You can see here on that silicone ring that it's got some teeth on there. And on the opposite side, there's some teeth in there. So we're gonna line them up. All right, now we're gonna take a backer plate, which is this guy right here. We'll put that behind on top of that rubber bumper. We'll grab 2 of these self-tapping screws. We'll just get these started in. And we're not trying to lock it down super tight. Just want to hold it in place. All right, you want to check that they're both kind of even thread count on the screws so that it's nice and flat, even pressure pushing in. I'm going to grab one of these double-sided sticky gaskets. We'll peel that off. I want to make sure this surface is clean. We've wiped everything down with alcohol. You don't want any oil or grease. You don't want to get your fingers. Fingers have grease on them. So wear rubber gloves. Try not to touch any of those surfaces. We'll press that on. Take a little pick or something that you can get under one of these. Just like that. Kind of peel it back. Now I like to do the same process for all of my parking sensors before I stick them on, because then when I break open my adhesion promoter, I can wipe down all the surfaces around the holes where the parking sensor is going to go, and then I can just, while it's still wet, get them all stuck into place. So we've got our parking sensor set up here. We have our bracket. We've got our little rubber plugs right there that we put behind, 2 screws in the cap, and that's gonna be an up arrow that way. So we rock that over, line it up. There we go. We get a good press on there, and that thing is gonna lock in place. Parking sensors are all done. Now we're gonna get our lights put on. So grab your pod lights if you have them, and you wanna run them in there like that. Throw a black washer on there that came with our gear, 13 mil nut on top. I like to kind of tighten down my Allen screws on the side, get them nice and snug. And then if you have a ratcheting wrench, that's gonna be the fastest way to get these guys locked down into place. All right, pod lights are in. Now we're gonna get the light bar mounted. If you don't have a light bar or don't wanna run one, this grill is included. You can mount that in. Use the light bar brackets to get that grill mounted in place. You can also, if you're super high speed, mount this grill over your light bar for protection, but I'm just gonna run the light bar. So we will grab our brackets, we'll grab that hardware set up there, and I'm gonna get the brackets mounted to the side of the light bar first, and then we'll mount the feet right there. All right, so you wanna use the included hardware that came with your light bar to get these bumper brackets installed here, and then grab yourself an Allen wrench, and we'll get it tight down. I think it's a number 6, but I could be wrong, and I'm too lazy to go look. The other thing too, if you look closely on the front of your Ironman light bar, see that little Ironman emblem right there? That's how you know which way is up. The cord is gonna run on the right-hand side. Throw these M6x20 with a flange nut set up right here. You need a 13 to get it all tight. These brackets all have slotted mounts so we can adjust the light bar up and down, left and right. So we'll get it all centered up. The other trick is just tighten it down fairly tight, because you can always get in there and kind of push on it and pry around and get it to set up for you. You just don't want to leave it too loose. That flange nut's serrated, so if you tighten the bolt head, that nut will bite down. Okay, now we've got a bunch of little wire ties, zip ties that were included, so I'm gonna work on cable management. If you look here on all these brackets, there's a little hole that we can run our zip ties through. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get all this kind of tidied up, because we're getting ready to put the fairlead on, and then we can get this thing mounted on the truck. Awesome, this is looking really good. We got to get the fairlead and license plate pop-up cover on. Grab a number 6 Allen key. We're going to take this guy right here and these, and we're going to feed them through the fairlead like that. Back through there. Drop that down. Right through there. And they're going to go right through those holes. Awesome. We'll grab a couple washers. And back here, we'll throw those over, and these black nylocks. Awesome. All right, let's get this tightened down. It's a 16 millimeter nylock on the back, 6 Allen for the front. Cool. That is looking really good. Now we just need to tighten that up. All right, now we can get the bumper shell mounted up here on the winch tray. And to do that, you're gonna need these little nut plates. And they're designed like a boomerang, because it was designed in Australia. The shape is because it's the way that it is. But 2, if you accidentally drop these things, they just come right back to you. It's really smart thinking. Grab yourself some tape. Line the plate up like that, then take a piece of painter's tape, and it will should hold that in place. Now before we hang the bumper shell on, I just want to point this out. You've got this gap between the recovery point and this frame horn bracket. That gap is there because we've got that mounting flange on the bumper shell. So when we go to fit it, that flange is going to slide right in here and in between. then this recovery point, everything's gonna kind of suck down together. So if you've tightened this hardware, you wanna loosen this M12 right here, and there's an M14 up underneath. Loosen both of those. That'll give it some, some space to suck all down. Once we get this tight, then we can go back through, lock them back down. There we go. Pull that through. Okay. Now grab your top plate or the top deck of the bumper. It's gonna fit right up here like that. Now, here's a tip. You can install this on the bumper shell before you hang it. It might be easier for you, but there's so much room back in here on these Ram 1500s. You shouldn't have much of a problem getting the hardware installed. So I just wanted to get the bumper shell on. Look, I'm probably gonna pull this top deck off anyways to get my light bar adjusted, so it's good practice to familiarize yourself with it. But before we put this on, it goes like that. Flip it over, wipe down this front edge with some alcohol or degreaser, and then grab this foam, and we're gonna peel off this sticky adhesive on the back, and we're gonna lay this foam across the front edge. That way when we get it bolted down, you won't get any noise or high vibrations on it. All right, I've got my little foam right there. We'll flip it right side up. Get it laid in place. All right. And if it's a little tight, we might loosen up these just to get the adjustment that we need. All right, we've got all this positioned. Grab your button head M5x16s and these little serrated flange nuts. And I'm gonna start on the outside, and you can kind of fit your hand through the open side wings. I'll hold the nut in place. I'll just get it a little snug, and then I'm gonna work my way across. I'll do the outer two, these outer two, get in from behind, get those. Get everything positioned and lined up the way I want, because there's a lot of adjustability in this. And once it's trimmed out and looks nice, then we'll get it all locked down. Okay, so the last two hardware setups you have are these silver M8x30s. These are the pinning bolts, and what they do is, you can see here on this outer plate, there's a hole. You wanna take a drill bit, drill through that hole, through the inner plate, and you wanna do this after the bumper's all set exactly how you want it. Drill it through, put the pinning bolts through on the right and left-hand side, lock them down. This keeps the memory of how you set your bumper up. So if you ever have to pull your bumper off to work on your truck, instead of going through that whole process again of lining it up and getting all your gaps just perfect, all you have to do is put those pinning bolts right back in. As long as it lines up, your bumper will line up just like the first time you set your truck up. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Now let's get our main bumper wire harness plug clicked back into place. We'll line that up, push it in, push that big gray swing handle down, push those red safety clips back into place. One last thing, if you removed your active front arrow, make sure to zip tie the plug up so it's not flapping around. We're under the truck. We're gonna get these gravel guard mounting plates fixed to this spot right here on the frame rails. Just so you don't get them confused, the one that goes on the right-hand side is stamped with an R for pirates. This one is stamped with an L because Pat Benatar made it, because everybody knows L is for children. You hang it there, you put your OEM hardware back over. These are 13mm nuts. And I like to push mine all the way up to the top so we keep things nice and tight. L is for children. All right, let's get this center plate hung. You're gonna grab this hardware here. There's a little bit of greasiness in here because we wanna make sure that those things don't rust out. And I always work off the center if I'm doing it by myself. very self-centered. There we go. So I'll just spin that down loosely. Now that can hang in place, no big deal. Now we can get the other two put on. All right, now grab these guys with that serrated nut, and that'll go right in there, just like the hat. Coolio. Now we'll do the other side. And on these, just get them, finger tight, because that serrated nut is gonna bite down. But I still wanna leave it a little bit loose so we have some adjustment, because we gotta get our side plates put on. Once everything's kind of put up, then we can make sure it's lined up right, then we can lock it down. Now we got 6 of these square clip-in spring nuts. 3 are gonna go on the driver's side, 3 on the passenger side. And I just take a little pick, I hook the bottom in, and then just press down on the top. Try not to stab yourself in the face. And push them in just like that. You can also go the other way too. Start with the top hooked in, and then you can just press up with the flat side of your pick. That probably makes more sense. Cool. All right, I'll go do the ones on the other side. All right, let's get this driver's side wing plate on. I'm gonna grab this hardware set up here. Again, I like to start in the middle, because then it'll hang on its own. Just chill, it'll hang. All right. Just like that. Spin those in. And this one, that's why we leave things loose, so we can adjust it. All right, this one, same thing like on the other side. We'll just get some adjustment out of this a little bit. There we go. Get that serrated nut on top. Spin it to win it. Cool. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Go back through, line up, get all my small details worked out, lock it down. Now let's get our wheel fender liners back on, and we're gonna start by going on the outside two right here. So we're gonna grab our little hardware setups. I'll start at the top. This is gonna take, got a little flange nut right here, a little 10 mil. So I'm gonna kind of feed my arm back up through here, get the hardware through the front, and I'll spin that nut on with the back of my hand. All right, and then same thing on this lower hole. I'm gonna push up on there, feed that through. Okay, cool. Now we can come over here, push this over those 8 mil stock screws that we left in here, and that is looking good. I'll grab an 8 millimeter socket to tighten those down, and I'll grab an Allen wrench to tighten those down. And this is gonna be a 4 millimeter Allen. Cool. Same thing on the other side. All right, guys, all done. This Raid bumper looks so sick on the front of this 1500 Ram. I really like the way it looks. Great utility. We got our winch installed. This thing is ready to rock. Hey, if you want more information on this or want to pick one up, go check it out at Ironman 4x4 America.com. We'll help you out over there.